true. But I got in touch with that just to.
How did you get on? Say, I didn't realize you did stroke.
I started looking at this as a court training actually.
That's easy.
Court training, CT1. I didn't train in the UK. I trained in India, and all my colleagues who I trained with have private practices in the US. And we keep in touch. And it's more a question of, sure, I'm going to work hard and do all the right things, but the life is short. Like it's pretty crap. I can barely afford, a mortgage, anything. So I was thinking, how can I make this sustainable? Should I leave medicine? It's not worth the hassle. Like you don't have. There's no self-respect. Forget respect. You're not looking after yourself.
Things have changed.
So that's how I looked into it. I find it very interesting though. I mean like I've always been into web design, looking into these things. So it's a question of whether I can actually apply this.
Just consider that people in charity well, you have to survey sort of building. So you've got national now, we've got say so we're based in Preston.
Yeah,
We're living down in Shropshire. Now we're just going to start in Sturton. So naturally, so we have that chapter. We're missing contract. So that got there. We're a little bit down in Oxford.
Yeah, convenient. Last thing not doing is go.
We have to go.
Look at taxes.
But now
It's convenient.
we know what the lowest tariff is.
Look at
interesting point about making
the chambers. Did you only pay 20% of your income to house?
No, you pay 20% of it.
That is all the billing done by your chambers. Is the billing done by the chambers?
So they do everything. So you go to Birmingham, any urological condition, they'll be the first page of half. They spend a lot on marketing.
And you just joined recently?
No, I saw this make 30 grand next year.
Were you invited to join or you expressed interest?
No, when I look at it, there's 5 people there, and they're all like, we have FICS Europe, and 3 of them are all gold medal winners, so they're like they were the creme de la creme of the registrars. So obviously the guy in charge is not, his own, and it's the same with one of the urologists in London, he's done that, he's got all the, I don't know, I just think, anyone can go out and put a website and this and that. If you're part of a name, and that name synchronous with success.
Do you think this might eventually break away from truly private because the guys won't do any NHS work? Because the aim of guys...
I don't know. I'm not money driven, But don't get me wrong, I like nice things. I like nice cars, I like nice houses, I like nice suits, I like that. But it's not why I work. Money's a good option, but I enjoy my NHS work. I love the camaraderie with the colleagues and all that. So no, I don't give up. I think phenomenally. I've got orthopaedic surgeons. These guys are talking about £1 million surgeons. It's nothing in my hospital. I've got surgeons, learn that in months. But all I'm saying is these guys carry on the NHS. There's a reason for it, isn't there? There's a reason. The one of our orthopods is just spending 70 million on the shop. So these guys do it, but he's still just NHS work.
But how do they turn you every year? How do they turn you every year?
He's different, isn't he?
There is
obviously he's not just earning off being he's doing other things as well.
Nothing more.
He works every Saturday. He works. You know, he's a full clinic in the morning on fitness. Probably doesn't need to now.
Wow.
So
But they all,
I think
I
the
guess,
problem is what they've said in private practices. You know who's going to be able to offer that.
Chuck up your
It's been
spine.
the NHS.
Is it alright?
You know what I mean? I don't think it's going to happen.
Thank you. Felt impressed.
You know, I see some of my senior colleagues now.
Cool.
So
I've had chats with them.
So what I suggest is,
You know, and stuff. They're not famous and easy for it.
right,
Paul was saying now about talking to NHS about I don't think he's in Bournemouth. It's a nice area.
so
Everyone's
you,
really
if you
nice.
can talk to him,
Places like
but that is also okay, and then I'll talk a bit about it, and then we'll do some routines. That's what we'll do. So you give me the nod when you want to steam or say what you want to say.
Generally shit clinicians who couldn't do right for this website. So they go into the management and then they see, you know, people coming up in the back. They do not.
Ah, yes.
Don't. Yeah, you say jazz, but a lot of them do. They say NHS salary. It's fucking, you know, some of them are like 600, 700.
All right, everyone all right then, gentlemen?
So they want to this amazing money, but they don't like doing one So we've got people like you know, it's people who like really got specialities. So it's people like rheumatologists, things like that.
Can you all make sure your phones are off, please?
You know what I mean? Someone the GP gave me that. It's not suspended.
Agreed. I agree.
Okay, so I have briefly introduced Ben, but I'd just like to mention him again. Ben is the guy who I trust with all my web work. He knows websites. His main business, if you like, is building 20 and 30,000 pound websites, e-commerce sites. So he's involved in some big stuff, detailed stuff. He knows what works, and whilst the kind of stuff you and I need isn't of that nature, you can't build the big stuff unless you know the principles. So I've invited Ben along to come and talk to us, and welcome to Ben.
Thank you. So, as Dev said, my name is Ben Waters. I've got a copy of my book with me, which I've only bought, I think, 5 copies. You might have to fight amongst one, but I can always send them on to you. But it's called Fix Your Website Fast. And the purpose of the book and what I want to talk to you about today is ultimately the purpose of your website. Now, all of you guys in the room, like most business owners out there, will have the wrong attitude of what a website is for. Most of you will think that the website is there to talk about you, your practice, to talk about what you can do. But fundamentally, the website should only have one purpose, and that's to bring you business. So how do you go about doing that? Well, you guys in the room are quite special as well, because your websites, they're going to be filled with lots of technical and detailed information. They're probably going to have diagrams and pictures and things like that that are quite detailed. And most people, as Dev mentioned, you know, they're browsing in the evening, they're looking for problems, they're looking on the internet about their problems, they're looking for solutions. They don't want to see particularly graphic images or graphic detailed diagrams and things like that. They don't want a textbook because it's going to be meaningless to them. What they want is to know, can you help them? So there's the saying, what's in it for me? And whenever you're looking at your website, from a patient's perspective, you always need to think of what's in it for me. Because if a patient is coming to your website and they're looking up some detailed information, they might get a bit of information from it. And as Dev mentioned, if there's not a phone number that they can call and just pick up the phone and speak to someone, then they'll probably get some information and they'll think, oh, well, I'll speak to someone tomorrow, and then they'll forget about it, and then it's gone, and then they'll go back to Google the next day and they might find somebody completely different, or they might just phone the GP or whatever. So you want to make sure that the whole process of your website is it's effectively a process of gearing that person to make contact with you. That might be online, or it might be a phone call. Now, I'm a big fan of online because people can do it at the click of a button and they can get some instant additional information, and then you can market to them. That's the absolute best way of doing it, because once you've got their email, you can email them regularly, and there's always a call to action. There's always a way of driving them back into your practice. So they fill out their details at 10 o'clock at night, and then at 1 o'clock in the afternoon they get an email from you saying, give me a call, and here's the phone number. They're very likely to think, I'm on my lunch, I'll give them a quick call. So it's the whole process is about what the website can do for your patient. Now, I very briefly mentioned that most people will do their websites wrong because they'll just talk about them. And this is the fundamental problem. You'll say things like, welcome to my website, I am a specialist in XYZ and this is what I do. But again, people don't want that. They will want an instant headline at the top of the page, so big bold text, which will describe the problem that has brought them to that page in the first place. And then you want additional text leading them through the processes in which you can help them, and then there's a call to action. Now, the best form of lead generation online, as I'm sure Dev has probably told you before, is some sort of guide. So it can be a 2, 3, 4 page PDF guide. Doesn't have to be detailed, and in fact I wouldn't make it too detailed. I would give it enough information to be of value, but you still want them to be asking for more.
We haven't really covered that much yet, but we will.
So that would be the process for the website from me. You have the website on the outside, which leads people into a detailed guide. In exchange for that guide, you get their name, their email, their phone number. You can call them the next day. You can have an email sequence, and again, you are obviously not the people calling. And it goes into an email funnel after that. Now, websites themselves, you want to make sure, as I'm sure you are very familiar with now, that your website is predominantly mobile focused. Most people will be browsing the web on a mobile. A bigger percentage, or the next big percentage will be tablet, and then you'll have desktop. But mobile and tablet is by far the most dominant. And it's not just enough to make sure that the website looks okay on a mobile, it has to look really good on a mobile. It has to have the right text visible straight away. It has to lead into the right call to action straight away. The right buttons need to be visible on the phone. They need to be easy to push. Forms need to be easy to fill out. And these are all things that people overlook. You know, you put a contact form on your website and it's got 5 or 6 fields on it, and it's big long fields, and you've got to type it all out, and people just get bored of it, and it's fiddly to do on a mobile if you're having to zoom in and out. So very much mobile optimized. So that would be the purpose of the website. And I was asked a question earlier about domain names, and it's worth mentioning that the domain name should be representative of your practice. And it should be, you know, I would predominantly go for a .co.uk domain. I would always register the other variations, so you have your .coms and things like that. They're peanuts to register, so you might as well have them. And you drive everyone to this main website, and that website is the same as your email. And this is an important point that Dev raised, because when you have an @hotmail address on your website and when you have a mobile number on your website, it looks so unprofessional. And people are uncomfortable about phoning a mobile, especially if it's late in the evening, because they think, "Oh, I don't want to disturb someone." You know, you might be perfectly happy to take that call, but people are less comfortable, and you want to make people as comfortable as possible on your website. And that's a very big, you know, everything about the website should be, for want of a better word, comforting. It should be leading people into an easy process to get in touch with you. So I think we'll be covering other things like social media and pay-per-click tomorrow.
Yes.
That's predominantly how you're going to make your website work. The one big thing I would say is there's no point in investing into a website that's done properly if you then don't market it. If you don't promote it on things like Google and Facebook, which we'll talk much more about later, then it's no use. You're going to be not getting a return on your investment, and you'll be throwing your money away. So those are the main elements, I think, from a website perspective that you want to be focusing on.
Good. Okay.
Let you need some more questions.
Certainly. We'll resurrect the old. Ta-da. Yes. As we talked about, alluded to earlier, and something we've talked about individually and with a couple of you, your website, it is absolutely critical that you have a website. Yeah, it is not optional. And you mentioned about some colleagues in your department that's hardly doing it. I mean, that's just insane. Yeah. Until maybe 10 or 15 years ago, websites were seen as luxuries. They were seen as optional. But now everybody searches online. You all know from your experience that people will consult with Dr. Google before they consult with any of you guys. Yeah? And we've all had patients come to our clinics waving sheafs of bits of paper and notes, or asking the most abstruse questions which are simply not relevant to them because they've been surfing online and they've got their thoughts twisted around. They're not doctors. So people are online. They're looking online and they're looking for you and your expertise. They're looking for information about their symptoms, and if there's a name for their condition which they happen to know, they'll be looking up for that. So you have to have a website. You guys have all got one, and that's great. That's the first step. The next step is understanding what your website is for. So first of all, it's like having an address. You've got to be there. The next thing is that your website, I put it to you, has one purpose and one purpose only. And that is to generate private patients. If you're not in private practice, there's no point in having it. And if your website is not performing, there is no point in having it. It's a waste of money. Okay? So now, once you've got that understanding, that will now lead to everything else. Okay? Or the other reason, by the way, for having a website is that it is very much the hub of all your marketing efforts. Many approaches to marketing your practice, such as Google AdWords, such as Facebook, such as on certain forums and all the rest of it, you can only work if you have a website to send traffic to. All right? So you can't do those marketing approaches unless you've got a website. Did you want to say something about that?
No, I'm just.
Sorry, I thought you had a question there.
It's a bad habit. I'm saying what you're saying just to remember.
Right. So.
And that's an important point as well from an offline marketing perspective.
Right.
So even if you're advertising in magazines, in papers, and anywhere else, you drive people to a website because the website's there 24 hours a day, and it's full of information. So you talked about having a call answering service, which I would, be 100% behind. You need a call answering service, but it's going to always be filled with a limited information. There's only so much you can give them as a script, whereas a website can be there filled with information that can subsequently, lead that person on further down the journey.
Absolutely. I mean, even if you, sorry, somebody, sorry, this way. The point is because even, I mean, let's look at Google AdWords. Let's have a look. Cost Northern Ireland, right? That's rubbish. Oh, there's no adverts here. Listen, it's a shame none of you guys are working here.
You look for the sponsored adverts.
Yeah. So okay, well look, here we go. That, I mean, that top posting there is not an advert, but an advert would look just like that, and it would have a little ad next to it, right? Now the point being, in however many characters there are there, and you know, we're talking about pay-per-click, that is your advert, right? There's a very limited amount you can say there, isn't there? So that same principle is true whether you run an advert, say, in a magazine somewhere, yeah, or an advert, or you get a bit of PR in a local newspaper. There's a limited amount that you can say. So by sending traffic from that, so visitors, call it traffic, from that advert to your website, you can now talk in as much detail about you, your expertise, and how you can help people in a way that you can't in an advert. You've got full colour, you've got sound, you've got video, you've got moving images, you've got all sorts of stuff that you can put there, and as much of it as you want. There's no limit to the space, yeah? Whereas if you're paying for an advert, you can be paying quite a lot of money. Yeah? And you know, unless you buy, even if you buy the whole magazine, it turns out to be very expensive. So your costs are there, but there's no cost on your website. So you've got that space there. It costs you literally nothing, so use it. And that's what we mean by sending offline traffic. So imagine you've been interviewed in the press. You start something, you've got some free press coverage. You say there's a link to your website on there and another URL, so London Urology /Daily Mail or something, I don't know. They'll print that, and then you can monitor the traffic to that site, and there you'll be talking about exactly what you're talking about in that newspaper article, but in much more detail and elaborating upon it. So that's what we mean by bringing offline traffic in newspaper adverts, for example, or flyers in golf courses or whatever, visitors from that to your website. Okay, and this is another reason that it's so important, because it forms, as I say, the hub of your marketing efforts. Now, if you want a strategy, God, it's not clicking, for your website, here it is, written on the back of a cigarette packet. Shame it won't enlarge. I wonder if I can do it here. It's a small image. Anyway, so your website's in the middle. You've got free traffic from, say, SEO and PR, so free publicity from various directions. So people end up on your website that you don't know about, you don't quite know how they get there, but they find their way there. You've also got paid traffic, so Google AdWords, Facebook, whatever. They come to your website, they read what you've got to say, it strikes a chord with them because you know what their needs are. So talking about heart failure, shortness of breath, talking about hip pain, whatever it might be. And then you want them to do something. Okay, now for most of you, having seen your websites, it seems that, and this is not that there's anything necessarily wrong with this, but the call to action, we call it, the thing you all want them to do is to pick up the phone to book an appointment, which is great. There are caveats with that because people search out of hours and so on, but that's fine. But the point is you want them to do something and take action. So everything about your website must encourage the person to do what you want them to do. Yeah? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And because form follows function follows function, they're related intimately. Every single element and aspect of your website has to be tailored so you're encouraging them to do what you want them to do. In your case, pick up the phone. And if it's either neutral, so it's neither influence them or not, or it's counterproductive, it needs to go. Okay? Now, obvious counterproductive things, Ben has mentioned, scary pictures. All right? You eye surgeons are bonkers for this sort of thing.
Yeah.
You'll have pictures of people with their, Langenbeck and self-retainers in their eyes, and it all, nobody likes to see that. Probably even eye surgeons don't like to see that, So, and it's very easy to put scary pictures up. One psychiatrist I worked with, he had what did he do? He had a picture of somebody, so he was talking about depression or something. He had a picture of somebody's face, and the guy had his face in his hands, but then it was some clever graphic thing that he got. So on the back of his hands was a picture of this guy's face, and it looked like a really disturbing image that was staring at you from the computer screen, yeah? And it was all a bit arty-farty, and I don't know, but it was scary. I wouldn't want to see that. Patients don't want to see that. So, but the trouble is, as doctors and surgeons, we, blood and guts and death and drama and excitement, this is just, it's just what we do. It's not something that leaps out at us as being something bad. It's not something that's scary or off-putting. You don't necessarily want to see it while you're at dinner or whatever, but it's not a big deal. But for Joe Public, things are very scary. So think about what you're putting up there. Classic example with orthopaedic surgeons is you will see like a video of an arthroscopy. It doesn't mean anything to them. It doesn't mean anything at all.
The better use for a video would be you talking to the camera, talking about how you can make their life easier, how you can make their life better, because everyone generally is going to be in some form of pain, probably more physical.
Yes.
And if you can talk to them directly about how you can take that pain away, you're going to be engaging them, and you lead them through with additional content and as Dev's mentioned, the call to action, which is either to call you or to email you.
And we'll talk about email and automation there, because that's a big, big thing, and it's something I use a lot. You may or may not be aware of how much I use that, but it works extremely well. All right.
As well as the email, you've got that little box, haven't you?
Yeah, and this is what Ben was alluding to about offering free reports and e-books and things.
Okay,
And again,
what have you written there on the website? You've written
where in the green?
in the cigarette thing. On the
Yeah,
website.
I'm sorry, the image hasn't come across very well there. So that's I brought up the other. So I was basically saying that you've got a website in the middle, and it comes down to paid traffic coming in,
Yeah. Oh,
and it comes out to getting your content read and acted upon. So it's a very simple strategy, yeah? But I'm a simple man, I'm a surgeon, yeah? I think simply. And I believe in the KISS principle, yeah? Keep it simple, stupid, because then you're less likely to make a mistake. So understanding the principle of what we're asking people to do will inform you critiquing your own websites and seeing where the problems lie. Now, as I said, form follows function. And there are two aspects of form, if you like, about your website. One is the graphical aspect, the design, what it looks like. So clearly it's got to be professional and present you in a good light and all the rest of it. I would suggest clean and simple design, yeah? But also the content there has to speak to the visitor and be persuasive and encouraging them to come and see you. Yeah, makes sense? Now, the two big mistakes I see in people's websites are, first of all, they create a website that's basically a brochure, a glossy brochure, and it might look very nice, but it's like some sort of corporate website, and it doesn't try and get you to do anything. And there's three then. The other one is they put up an online CV about how they worked at this clinic and that clinic, and for this big cheese boss somewhere, and etc. and all their publications. And the fact of the matter is, nobody cares. The only thing, nobody cares at all. Your colleagues don't care. Why should they care that you worked at the Cleveland Clinic or that you've written this in the paper, yeah? And patients certainly don't care, because their only question is, can you help me? I've got this pounding in my chest and I'm terrified I'm about to have a heart attack. Can you help me? They're not interested in the fact that you did this fellowship and that fellowship and etc. So when you look at your website, and when we do a critique now, look at it through the prism of the patient. What do they want? And if you make that change, it'll make a huge difference. The other mistake, third mistake people make, is they create an online textbook, which is, again, totally pointless, all right? And we'll talk about, maybe now is a good time to quickly talk about it, because what I suggest, one of the other critical strategic decisions you need to make about your practice is this. There's something called the 80-20 rule, which shows that, let's maybe not talk about that too much, just offer not so much a tangent, but unnecessary complexity. The point is this, out of you as an orthopedic surgeon, yeah, out of all the conditions you could possibly treat, there are going to be 4, 5 or 6 conditions that will comprise the vast bulk of your clinical workload, both NHS and private. Now sometimes there's a difference between NHS work and private work because of the nature of referrals and all the rest of it, but it's usually similar. Sometimes there is a difference though. But it'll be, you know, you'll know, there's going to be arthroscopy, exactly. Right, there you go. And that's what, 90... Right, but the point is knee replacement and then the complexity of the decision afterwards, right. So that'll be maybe 85–90% of your workload. So, therefore, your website should not whiffle on about any of this other stuff that you could or should or could do or treat or whatever. You should have 3 pages talking about the injured knee and what the significance of that is and why they need to see you. The chronic pain knee, for example, and you talk about degenerative change and osteoarthritis or rheumatoid, but the point is you're getting on towards the knee replacement end of the spectrum. And then maybe the young knee with pain, I don't know. You see what I mean? All that other stuff, forget about it.